What's up, guys? We're back on Ball Over Passion. Today, there's no face cams. Unfortunately, we have a massive injury crisis at Ball Over Passion. We're out from the team members. CK's out, Corin's out, and George is out. But we have, four collective members,
Bruv,
including
we've
me.
just been called reservists. You know that?
You
We've just
guys
been
are the
called like youth team
reserves. You
players.
guys are the reserves. Look, I'm gonna have to
All right,
justify
okay.
ourselves. There's a
Might as
lot of
well call
people
me Willie
waiting.
Caballero at this point.
Well, you
Come
are
on, man.
No,
now.
bro,
I'm
I'm Willie
Nicholas
Caballero.
Pepe
You
on the
guys
bench
can
looking
yeah.
at Z right now. I'm Nicholas Pepe on the bench against Everton looking at Z right now.
People will be
That
asking me
same
questions.
screenshot.
People will be asking me questions, and I have to let them know. But look, introduce yourselves, Mush, Nom, and
So I'm
Sam.
Mush. If you can't read, then
Right, bruv.
oh,
Straight away
okay.
with the
I wasn't
cuss to
finished,
the
but
audience. If you can't read, don't go to school, yeah?
if you can't read, that's AFC Mush. You can follow me on AFC Mush. Yeah, and yeah, that's it. No face cam for me today. Sorry, I ain't got a trim, but yeah.
Yeah, so ladies, I'm sorry you're disappointed that you can't see AFC Mush today. But yeah, my name's Nom. I'm sure you guys know me from God knows where. I've been on a couple of these podcasts before. So if I start lagging behind, that's only because I've probably fallen asleep listening to myself. So give us a shout to let me know that I'm still meant to be there talking to you guys. Right, Samuel.
Yeah,
You
and
say,
I'm
bro?
Samuel. I've been on there a couple of times before. I'm like the Divock Origi of Ball Over Passion, world-class bench warmer. Whenever I come on,
Okay.
straight impact sub. So
What?
yeah, back again.
Ball in the back of the net, yeah?
Always.
Always.
Okay, so just to answer this question before we start, why is George not in the preview? Everybody has, a personal life. Sometimes they can't make it, so we can't justify it. Just know that we're going to be missing him, but these guys are just as great, so don't worry. Anyways, I want to start, or I want to dive straight in talking about Southampton and see, just basically just forget about what happened against Everton, really. But before we start, like, what are your general thoughts on how like the mood is around the club? Like, what do you guys make of like the kind of hysteria that's coming out from social media just around the club right now? Mush.
Shall I go first?
No,
Oh,
it's
I'll
up.
go
It's
first.
up to you guys. Go on.
To be
go on,
honest,
Mosh, go
social
on.
media's. I'll go then Nom, then Samuel. I think we'll do that order and we'll change it up for every question. But uh, obviously the mood on social media is obviously going to be reactionary. Like when we win, it's like, yeah, Arteta's the best, and when we lose, it's like, Arteta, get the fuck out, this and that. So, so social media is social media. Like if you've been to games, I'm sure all four of us have been to the game. The atmosphere at the stadium compared to how it is on Twitter is completely different. So all these Twitter fans, they're not a representation of what the Arsenal fans are really like. Like when you're at the Arsenal ground, when you're at the Emirates, everyone's more positive, and for some reason on Twitter, it's just become a norm. I think because of Arsenal fan TV, it's just become a norm to be negative, and like it's deemed as being cool to hate on players and hate on managers. But yeah,
No.
You know what, bro? I'll be frank with you. I've kept away from Twitter probably as whether we win or lose. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So I've tried to be sort of more balanced in the way I approach Twitter. Sometimes I come on there if I feel there's like a valid opinion or something that could add value to my day. I haven't been as active on there, you know, as I was before. So for me, that's kept things or helped me to keep things in perspective. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? I'll be honest with you. Even before we, lost those couple of games, I knew throughout the season we're going to have these kind of rocky patches, right? So whether they happen today or next week or whatever, you can sort of, predict what the reactions are going to be with our fan base,
Yeah, yeah.
particularly on Twitter. So for me, none of it's a surprise. I'm more interested in what's happening in the real world and what's happening with the, players out there as we see them than people's opinions about whoever they stand or whoever they don't stand or what they think about the manager. To be honest, it bores me after a while because everything that needs to be said has always been said. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So I'm not interested in that anymore. I'm not interested in about people's opinions on how they see things on Twitter. Right? I think these kind of platforms for me, add value. So if you're listening to someone, you can actually listen to the nuance that they're trying to sort of put across, as opposed to it being reduced down to a few characters or a few words on a tweet. So that's how I see things these days on social media.
Yeah, for me, just to follow up on what Nom's saying, I think I tend to not take social media too seriously. I'm just there usually for the entertainment. But I do think, yeah, after the Everton game, it was quite toxic, and you did see sort of a lot of people jump off the Arsenal bandwagon, if you will. I don't know if there was just like so many people who were maybe on the fence to begin with, but for some reason or another, the Everton game was so bad to them that it seemed like the whole sort of perception and sentiment kind of flipped after these past two games, especially, I guess, because people saw it as saw it through the lens of top four and the idea that we would have been 8 points clear of whatever if we won these games, etc. Personally, I was always kind of pessimistic about going to Old Trafford. I'm never confident, and I didn't think, despite their run of form in terms of results, that in terms of their actual performances, Everton were as bad as their results suggested. So to be honest, I was always thinking like it's two tough games, even though ideally I was hoping for a minimum of 4 points, like most people. So yeah, like it has been quite crazy in terms of the backlash and the reaction to the Everton result in particular. I'm more disappointed with the Man United result, to be fair, but yeah, I kind of, like Nom said, after that Everton game, even though I was on like Twitter and stuff, I tried not to take it too serious because it just seemed like everyone just started piling on one after another, and it just seemed far too reactionary for me.
No, I agree with you guys. So obviously I missed the previews for the last two games, but my general feelings for both of these Manchester United matches and the Everton match was the fact that we weren't good enough. I know against Manchester United we were probably better to some extent, but against Everton, it felt like everything was falling apart in front of our own eyes. And you know how they say usually Arsenal have a very soft underbelly. It felt like that was coming back, and this is where it made me. It's not that I've not been vocal about my thoughts on the manager. I have been vocal that I'm not so particularly pleased with the way Arteta has been managing the team and the lineups, the setup, and everything. But for me, that game highlighted every bad thing about Mikel. The fact that we weren't able to sustain pressure, and the fact that also we can't press. I don't like the way we press, and the fact that despite us saying that we've improved defensively and all of that stuff, we've conceded 9 goals in the last 3 away games. Now, if you want to give context to that, yes, we played against Liverpool, Manchester United, and Everton. But the fact of the matter is, we still have. I think we've conceded more goals than we've scored, and we've got we've got a -4 goal difference. So I'm struggling to see any positive side to the way Arsenal are playing. Obviously, we're going to be back at the Emirates tomorrow. We could easily go in and have a great performance, and that's what home territory is for. Is for your team to, is where you should be dominating. But ideally, I would have liked to see a more of a compact kind of setup and performances against teams away from home. So I don't know. I mean, would you look at this away form as a concern before we start talking about Southampton?
I think what I've noticed is when we play away from home, we struggle to keep the ball or sustain pressure. I think George went over it in the last pod in the Everton, I think, review. We just can't get hold of the ball, but at home for some reason, I think it's just the fans and everyone. It's just helped us ball longer for longer periods as well. Like when we're away from home, we just let other teams have the ball regardless of who we play, even if it's Burnley or whoever. We just let them have the ball. Like, I don't understand it. I think it's just ridiculous, and we need to kind of replicate and mirror what we do at home away, which is obviously a lot harder. Like, it's not as easy as me just saying it. We need to find a solution. But yeah, I also think in terms of how you said, like, the big problem for us is going up. Like, fair enough, from minute 1 to minute 20, we always have our usual quick starts, but our usual quick starts weren't existent in the last 2 games. And it's a question which I asked to you guys a few weeks ago. I don't know if you remember, Zed, but I asked, if we don't get our usual quick starts, what do you think will happen? And in the last 2 games, we didn't get our usual quick starts, and like, well, I think at Old Trafford actually we did have a quick start. We were ahead 1-0, but what eventually happened was we just sat back. The midfield were too like, it's just, they weren't brave enough. You know, Partey especially. I think Partey especially. We need to speak about him. Uh, he hasn't been. I think he's been massively overrated by the fan base, and like, things need to be said about him. I know people on the timeline have been going crazy because, especially because of Zed, he's been going crazy over Partey. But you gotta give him credit, because he said what he's been saying about Partey. He's been saying this before his bad performances at Old Trafford and Goodison Park, and the performances at Old Trafford and Goodison Park are just backing up what he's been saying. And I completely agree with him. And to be honest, I was one of Zed's doubters as well. And I said to Zed, "What are you talking about? Partey's a world class player." But I've started to realize what's going on. And yeah, like, other than his between the line passes and his semi to like it's like 50% pressing. It's, other than that, he's very slow on the ball. He's very weak for a man of his physique. But yeah, I think the past 2 games have been giving me proper Emery and Wenger vibes, where we just couldn't get hold of the ball. And yeah,
Fine. I mean, to be fair, look, my thoughts on Partey. I mean, I've said it plenty of times, and I think I might be criticizing Thomas a bit too much, and which is maybe my problem, where I'm not able to distinguish, bad form and bad application in games. But I feel like collectively, I cannot see energy from that player. I cannot see him making the extra effort. Like, for example, if there is a player that's, he's trying to cover, he is not running twice as fast as he did when he started playing for us last season. It's all these little things that I've noticed when I was watching the game, especially at the Emirates. And now, like, people are seeing it. Well, we'll see. We'll see now. And look, he's also admitted himself, look, his performances overall for Arsenal has been like an overall 4 out of 10. I'd say he's been less than that really this season anyways. But look, if he's looking to improve himself, then look, great. But look, I want to start looking into how we play against Southampton. No.
but just to end on Partey quickly. Like, I don't know if you guys remember, I used to be called Partey Season on Twitter. I know Zed always mentions it to me all the time. It's just so cringe. But I was one of his biggest fans. Like, it's just like, I was just one of his biggest fans. And he when he does play well, he does play well. It's usually man of the match performances from him when he does play well. But it's just the consistency for me. You have one good game and then 3 bad games, then another one good game, then 3 bad games. He hasn't had a spell of good games. But people have been using, like, Xhaka not being in the team as a scapegoat for his performances, but we've got to start taking responsibility and putting the responsibility on him, rather than saying his midfield partner, like, oh, Lokonga is not good enough with Partey, Elneny is not good enough with Partey, Maitland-Niles is not good enough with Partey. We need Xhaka. But when Xhaka was there last game, what was he doing?
I mean, look, Z, I'm going to disappoint you a little bit, because I before we jump onto Southampton, let me talk a bit about what's happened, what I've seen. Look, I want to touch on Partey, because
Go ahead.
look, Z will know this. Like, I think when Partey first signed, I had different opinions about where I think Partey would play and where I'd like him to play, based upon some of the other lads on the podcast. And I think Z was one of the first people to sort of listen to some of the things I had to say about him. So I never saw him as a like a marauding 8. right? The way I saw him was like the team that he's excelled at, the team where he stood out at. It's a very different team with a different philosophy than the team that we have. You know, at Atletico Madrid, what I saw of his performances, he was asked to screen the back four, and he had technicians ahead of him, right? Koke or Sal when he was actually half decent. I don't know what happened to Sal. I mean, looks like he's fallen off a cliff there at Chelsea. But he had these players ahead of him, and he used to screen. And don't get me wrong, he used to, on occasion, bring that ball out of the first phase and then sort of initiate either switches of play or a quicker movement for Atletico Madrid as they moved up the pitch. But he didn't do that all the time, every single game, right? So I think if you guys go back, and I want to take you guys back a bit because I want you to analyse what's going on with Partey. I think when Partey moved to Arsenal, he stated that he wanted to do more than what he was being asked to do at Atletico Madrid because he felt like that's what he was doing for Ghana and he could do that for another club. He felt like Atletico Madrid was sort of restricting him in what he could do. I honestly think we're finding the limits of Thomas. I don't think Thomas is ever going to get you 5 assists, 7 goals in a season, right? So he's not an 8. So anyone who keeps on saying he's an 8 is an 8. What is an 8? Because if Thomas Partey is an 8, then I don't know what kind of 8 we're playing, right? Because I don't think he's going to get you any of those numbers that you're looking for. Now, some people say he's not a 6, but I think if you look about positionally where he was playing like a deep line playmaker for Atletico Madrid. He wasn't running into the final third and making the differences, right, or providing assists. So I think we're misusing him in the way we're playing him. And the problem, you know, like Mush said that what has the problem been? You know, like maybe we lost control in midfield. I think the problem really doesn't start in midfield. I think and it's going to be controversial. I think the problem goes back to our goalkeeper and our defenders. Because if you look, they're the first, you know, just like, you know, when we press, who triggers the press? It's strikers, right? The forwards trigger the press. And then the rest of the team have to follow. Now you've got to ask yourself the question, who triggers us dropping deep? Right? Who triggers the Arsenal team dropping deep? Which players in the field trigger that dropping deep?
You see what's on the screen right now. Partey was never asked to be a leader at Atletico either. So it's kind of what we're seeing at Arsenal as well, where we're respecting a player that of Partey's caliber to become a leader at the club. But the thing is, it feels like he shies away from that kind of responsibility. And someone like Sambi is like, he comes across as someone that, you know, is a bit more assertive on the pitch. He's ready to fight on the pitch, and Partey hides away. And it kind of surprises me that people cannot see it. And I don't know if we are misprofiling him, if it's Mikel that's
his profile is very weird. His profile is very weird because,
it is,
in my opinion, he isn't like people. You know, people have been flirting with the idea of 4-3-3, but in a 4-3-3, Partey doesn't work in any of the midfield 3 positions because, as a lone 6, you don't get the best out of him where he has this between the line passes, his pressing. You don't get the best out of him in a lone 6. But then again, as Nom said, as an 8, he isn't much of a goal threat. So what Partey is a pivot player. That's it. He won't work in a 4-3-3. But to answer Nom's question, sorry, Nom, can you repeat that question again? I had the answer in my head.
So I said, look, when we press, it's the strikers who trigger the press, right? So when Oba goes, the rest of the team have to go with him.
Yeah.
Now, who's the one, or where are the triggers that are making us drop deep?
Okay, so this is exactly what I said. So a couple people have like literally DM me on Twitter and asked me, why do we keep sitting back in games? And in my opinion, I think it's the inexperience of Ben White and Gabriel, because they've come from teams, Lille and Brighton, who don't necessarily play in a high line. So they don't have the experience of playing in a high line. So they can't control a high line. So it comes with inexperience. But with experience, I think if we get the right midfield profiles and Gabriel and Ben White learn as they go along how to control a high line, I think sitting back in games won't be a problem. So yeah, I think to answer your question, it comes from Gabriel and Ben White's inexperience.
And to be honest, bro, I think it's also to the goalkeeper, because I know, look, he's very verbal about what he wants to do, but I think in games where we want to sort of focus on getting that first phase right, and we have been good at the first phase, right? We need to get a rhythm going, right? So if you've played football, you'll know rhythm is important. The tempo of your passing is important. Okay, those things we don't get right. If that breaks down, then the whole move breaks down. Does that sort of make sense? So for me, and I've said this from the start of the season, by the way, before the season started, that elite teams, and if you look at, like Liverpool last year had a disaster of a season. They scraped into top 4. And if you listen to Klopp's analysis, and I want to draw a parallel, and people probably hate me for bringing Liverpool into it, but I think they're one of the best proponents of having a really high line. I think they're even better than Man City at having a high line, right? But then they've got a top world-class player like Van Dijk, right? So
That's their cheat code, though. Their
Yeah,
cheat code is
no,
Van
so-
Dijk.
but then listen to what happens. He said, and this is Klopp reviewing what happened last year with him. He said that he might have made a mistake not trusting some of the central defenders to come in. He felt like he needs to prepare them to come and play the role. And as in turn, he dropped Henderson and Fabinho back into centre back. And then they lost something in midfield. Does that make sense? So for me, it just shows you how key it is to keep that defensive line high. Because when we've played, and this is the thing, the question you've got to ask yourselves is, are we incapable of playing great football? We're not. I thought at times against Tottenham and spells against Aston Villa, etc., that we play some excellent football. And we can sustain that. But we have to have the structure and the drive and the bravery. And you have to be brave, right? I think this is what he was hinting at in his press conference today, that in the final third, you have to be brave and you have to go for it. And for me personally, in the back line, you have to be brave and keep that line, because if you don't keep everything compact as a unit, that's when things start happening in a cascade effect. So if the defenders start falling back, then the midfielders start falling back because they want to close the line between them and their centre backs. Then the strikers feel like they're going to fall back because the gap between them and their midfielders who aren't pressing now because they're falling back. And therefore, you end up in all of our players back in our own half, and we find it almost impossible then to build and then sustain attacks from that kind of position, right?
Yeah. I don't want to make this too long, but let me just add to that. So I understand what you're saying about the defenders dropping back and the midfielders following, but I think it's a case of when we lose the ball in the final third, the best way to sustain pressure is by winning the ball back quick. So the way Man City do it is, but Man City and Liverpool do it is by pressing the ball quick. So that refers to how I think our midfield is weak. Our midfield don't win the ball back quick, and when that happens, the defender's first instinct is, okay, I've got no midfield in front of me. Let me just quickly run back. Cover the spaces, blah blah blah. So I think it stems from the midfield more than it does the defense. But then at the same time, the defense still need to learn how to actually control a high line the way Van Dijk, Ruben Diaz, John Stones, Laporte, all of them do.
Mush, I agree with you. You know that, and Z, you might want to back me up on this, but I've said to you, I think I've DM'd you before, that when I watch the press, when Partey goes to press the ball, personally, in my opinion, when he joins the forward press, he really doesn't have the greatest timing.
No, he doesn't.
And you watch him, go back and watch the games, he goes forward, and I know this is going to sound outrageous again, but I think El Nenny's better at knowing what he should be doing in a forward press than Partey. Partey, for me, is brilliant at screening and intercepting the ball after a ball's got through a press. Does that make sense? He's very clever at knowing that a ball's going to come loose through a press, and he can pounce on it or have a chance of then physically coming in and competing one-on-one with a player who's probably not getting the perfect ball. Because if your press is correct, any ball that gets through the press can't be one of those perfect balls. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So I think if you look back at Atletico Madrid, that's what he was good at.
Yeah.
He was good at picking up those loose balls or challenging for 50-50s after they've got through that initial sort of, and Atletico Madrid didn't press, let's be frank, but they were dropping back as a block, right? And they were clever in how they pressured the team into playing into certain spaces. So I think this is where.
But then, are you suggesting that to get the best out of Partey, we should completely ignore him in our pressing structure and just have other players in front of him to do the pressing job and keep him back? Is that what you're trying to suggest?
In my opinion, 1000%.
Okay.
Right? Because I think what you want him to do is play to his strengths. My personal opinion is, I think, look, I saw a stat today, and look, don't get this skewed because we know Lukonga isn't reached anywhere near his potential, but Lukonga has only lost one, I think, duel where he's gone for a tackle while Thomas Partey's been dribbled past. I can't remember, and I hate it now that I can't
I think
remember.
it was 17. I think it was 17 times or something. I've seen the stat as well.
Yeah, you've seen the stat, and I'm not
Yeah.
surprised because I think what he's doing is where he's getting bypassed is when he's going for the forward.
Yeah.
He's getting easily bypassed because that's alien territory for him. In that he's never been. Go back and look at the Atletico Madrid games. Where is he involved in the forward press? They don't press anyway, not the way that we do. Do you understand where I'm coming from? So
Yeah.
I think, look, if a player goes to press, this is why Liverpool's. And I said this the other day. I was going to football and I was saying to one of my mates I said to him, listen, before Klopp got to Liverpool, would you ever? I was saying this to actually one of my Newcastle mates. I said to him, would you ever think Ronaldo, Jordan Henderson, James Milner would be classified in 2 or 3 years' time as world-class midfielders? And the answer to that was no. Right? So he took these players and he's played to their strengths. The guy who sits back for Liverpool and doesn't join that press is Fabinho. Right? And he's very good at sweeping up anything that gets beyond that press. Does that kind of make sense? So for me, I think our structure,
Yeah, it makes absolute sense.
the way we press and the way we sweep behind him, behind the press, is where it's going wrong. Because I think the additional midfielder that's going there isn't being as effective and helping out the strikers or the forward players as they could do.
I think our biggest problem is
just to add on to your comments. So I want to move on. But before we do, George had to make a comment, and I think he's watching as well. So he basically said, and Nom, you can reply to this. He said, Partey has played as the deeper lone pivot mostly this season and not forward. His poor numbers and critique are him deeper and not ahead. What do you have to say about that, Nom?
Yeah, but that's not always true. If you look at in the game, there are times where he's been asked to go and press as opposed to be the deepest player. And when I've seen him, the times I've seen him, he's been poor. Right? When he's been the furthest forward midfielder in a press, he's been poor at either closing the space quick enough or winning the ball. How many times has Partey won the ball in the final third this year?
I can't remember.
Because I think the bias was that he is brilliant at one-on-ones. You know, if you ask the fan base before we got him that this guy is brilliant at one-on-ones, but which zones is he good at one-on-ones? Because it's definitely not the final third, right? In my opinion. Where he's the best at is where you've got an effective press and he's good at sort of intercepting and challenging players who are not getting what I would call quality balls into their feet, right? Where he's got a chance to coming in and making an effective tackle. So that's what I've seen. I've been watching. Look, I made this observation a while back, and I've been watching him since, right, to see how the manager utilizes him. Okay, so I think Arteta's, and George is right to an extent because I think Arteta's picked on this, and I think now he is the guy who's been asked to sit back further back, and someone like El Neni, like the other day, he was asked to press more. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? But I have seen Partey go up there and then look lost and then come back. Right? If you're going to go with the forwards as a midfielder and it gets into your zone, you've got to, for me personally, you've got to be able to affect the ball and you've got to make the team lose possession there. Right? So I think that's what we've been poor at doing. I think the midfield haven't been able to back the forwards pressing. Right? And I think that's where we've managed to not be as effective.
All right, guys. So I think we've spent last 30 minutes just talking about everything but Southampton. So obviously tomorrow's the game, 3 p.m. kickoff. Have you guys heard about the amount of injuries Southampton have? Because
they're playing Willy Caballero in goal. They haven't got their starting centre backs. They haven't got their starting centre backs, and they haven't got Romeu, who's their CDM, and they haven't got a keeper. So they're playing Willy Caballero, and every time I see Willy Caballero, I just think of the FA Cup final. So So we have every reason to be positive about tomorrow, but at the end of the day, it's Arsenal.
But Mush, this is Arsenal. So everyone's going to
Exactly.
put us as massive favourites. So look, I'm telling you now, bro. I hate making predictions. So Z, don't even make me make a prediction because I won't do it. Because I think I
No,
hate it when I come into the timeline. I see everyone being like making all these like, yeah, we're going to easily steamroll in 3-1, 2-1, and we end up losing, and then nobody wants to go back and say, oh, okay, yeah, my prediction was completely wrong, blah blah blah, whatever. I just hate that kind of stuff. For me, it's like when I was growing up, we used to do that as kids, and it was bad luck. And then all of us, like, in my household, we got a Newcastle
Yeah.
supporter, Liverpool supporter. Everybody stopped making predictions for their team, right? We would just say we would wind the other guys up and say, yeah, you guys are going to easily win. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Just to set them up, right? So I can't do those predictions, bro. I can't. I think tomorrow it's going to be. It's not going to be an easy game because I tell you what I respect Hassan Hotel is that whichever players he sends out, the consistency of performance as a team is really decent. They all go out. They know the philosophy. They know what they should be doing, right? Well, obviously, the quality difference can make a difference in moments in game, right? But if we play like we've done recently and we don't bring quality to our game and show that we've got more quality on the pitch, then it can prove to be a really difficult game tomorrow, more difficult than we think on paper, right? So I think people need to be careful about, making wild predictions and,
no.
being happy about the fact that
It's one
Southampton
of
got
those
6 points.
games. No, it's one of those games where it's like, are we going to be coming out as a wounded animal from that performance against Everton, or are we going to be hiding? And for me, that's interesting because actually, when we played against Southampton at home last season, we were a wounded animal, and I think we got outplayed by Southampton, like in a crazy
Yeah,
manner.
Saka's. I think if I remember, it was Saka's brilliance that
Yeah,
got
it
us out of
was.
jail. To be honest.
It
Yeah.
was, and usually, was it Ralph actually sets up in a 4-2-2-2? But the fact that who's out? Wait, let me read the
It's
injury list. It's
Salis is out, isn't he?
Salisu,
Salisu,
Romero,
Bednarek.
Che Adams, Armstrong.
Che Adams is out.
Che Adams is out as well. So
Oh my.
they're missing quite a lot of their spine really, and this is where I
I'll
feel
be
like.
honest.
Mhm.
Yeah, I'll be honest. I haven't watched much of Southampton this season, but I did watch them last game because obviously we were playing them this week, and the way they set up is like their shape is like a 4-1-4-1, where not really a 4-1-4-1, but basically Romeo will basically drop as a lone six. Then Ward-Prowse will have like a free role, and their wingers, which were Redmond, I can't remember the other geezer, they were very narrow, and the width was held by Livramento and Kyle Walker-Peters. And Che Adams would also drop, and I think the other striker, I forgot his name. What's the other striker? He scored last week. He's
Broha.
a big threat for tomorrow. I forgot his name.
Broha.
I forgot his
Broha.
name.
Yeah, his name is Broha.
Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, he's from
Yeah,
Chelsea.
Borja, yeah. I mean, look, what he's good at though, he's bought players for profiles that fit his system. Even the young players, Livramento, Borja. So this 4-2-2 formation that he plays, when the players come in tomorrow, they will know exactly what their role is. So I'll give him credit for that because it's, as I said, as a team, they'll have a game plan. I think what we did when we beat them last is we counter press quite well. We set traps for them, right? Remember, they're waiting to press us, and we were sort of trying to affect their build up, and try to nick the ball off them and hit them on the break.
but you
Because I
see,
think
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but you see
no,
with their
go on.
system, how you're praising Hassan Hutel. Don't you think his system is too, it's too like his system? It's like he's playing a system that's meant to be made for the Bundesliga, not the Premier League. Because for some reason he loves playing with a high line, and everyone in the Bundesliga does the same, and that's why they get their annual 9-0 defeats. I'm not saying we're going to beat them 9-0 tomorrow because
No,
that's
100%,
definitely not
100%.
happening. That's definitely not happening. But it's just I don't. That's why I had them as when George asked me a few weeks ago when I came on the pod, who do I
Yeah.
see getting relegated? I had Southampton as one of the three getting relegated purely because of that high line, and teams can expose that. Like this ain't the Bundesliga, like the Premier League. If you're playing a high line in the Premier League, I think it's absolutely criminal, and that's why I think Southampton. I don't think they've played well in their last 5 games.
But the problem is this, right? Them playing the high line makes them more braver than us. So when they do beat teams, they look excellent, right? And I don't look. That's not me bigging up Hassan Hurtel. I know he's got flaws, and that philosophy has flaws, right? And the flaws are that you're going to get thrashed off the park if the other team come with quality and they're clever and they're able to sort of exploit you.
Yeah, high
in
risk, high
transitions.
reward, basically.
Exactly. So high risk,
Yeah.
high reward. There is no way, but the thing you have to commend him is that he's convinced the players to be able to play that system, including the risks that they do. Like, you see people praise Bielsa because he's got it ingrained in his players that they're going to be in a one-on-one battle with whoever their opponent is all over the pitch, right? Now, where it makes, when, in my opinion, where the difference is made is when you play teams like that is, when you do the one-on-one matchups, can you bring the individual quality to overcome this collective sort of idea that they're going to bring about, and the pressure they're going to bring about? Do you understand where I'm coming from? So I think where we beat them before, I thought there were some individual moments of brilliance where we caught them, right, in a counter press and were able to get the ball quickly to our forwards for them to be able to get in behind the back line. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So that's what we've got to do. Tomorrow we've got to be clever, right? And Z asked the question at the start. He said, are we going to be, chomping at the bit, or are we going to be nervous? I think during the game, my prediction is there's going to be moments of both. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So there'll be a moment where we're really going for it. If we get the lead, you know what's going to happen, right? So that's when we're going to hopefully see if they've managed to make a difference in the mentality, and if they manage to work out some triggers to be able to help that team maintain a higher line and push further up the pitch than just to start dropping back towards their goal, right? So I predict we'll see both aspects in tomorrow's game.
Samuel, what do you think of Southampton this season? Like, has there been any specific player that you've been impressed by in Southampton, should we be watching out for any of these players?
Yeah, well, obviously, I think the standout one has been Livramento. Probably he's someone that many Arsenal fans have taken an interest to as well. He's impressed me a lot. But they've always seemed to have, a fair few number of really good or quite decent players for their sort of level. So I think, tomorrow will be interesting. I didn't know that Che Adams was. Is he definitely out for tomorrow's game?
Well, I think so. I mean, he was apparently he's a doubt for the game, and now he hasn't travelled, so probably we have to see.
Okay, so he's probably out. I do like him as well. I think he's a good player that caused us quite a few problems, if I remember, in this fixture last year.
Yeah, the Emirates. Yeah, he was amazing.
He was in between the lines. He was, we were all over the place trying to defend him. I think it was him and Walcott that ended up getting Gabriel sent off in the fixture last season. So he would have been a handful. So if he's out, that's a big bonus. But as the boys have mentioned already, form goes out the window usually when it's Arsenal. So likewise, when Everton hadn't won since September, and then along came Arsenal, I think, despite their injuries, it'll probably be one of those games where you're not expecting, or you're still expecting a tough battle, despite their injury woes. But I do think, at least for me, I would, with the amount of injuries that they do have out, I would like to see quite a convincing win. That's not me underestimating Hassan Hüttl or the players that they will have, because I do like Southampton, and I do think they're like a solid Premier League side that I would be disappointed if they go down. But in terms of the losses that Arsenal have had, and the fact that, as Z alluded to, we should be coming out sort of as wounded animals or with a certain swagger to try and make a statement that we've gone through a rocky patch, but we're good for another run again. I would like to see something that's more than just a 2-0 and a sitting back, as we've discussed. And I do think part of the reason why we do sit back is because just our midfield hasn't been able to show for the ball at times when we do build up from the back. So something that I've noticed, I don't know if the lads agree with me, but something I've noticed is there's times where we manage to play out from the back, get to the midfield, and then there's no real idea once the ball gets into a Partey or whoever else is partnering him. So, but I do think at home there is a bit more maybe confidence, and it's just a mental thing, but there is a bit more confidence when it comes to playing at home. So I do hope that we don't drop off as much, but to be honest, even when we played Newcastle, I think once Martinelli scored the second goal, I wasn't happy even then with the idea of going up a couple of goals and then not really going for the kill. And something I would really like to see against this Southampton side, without trying to sound like I'm underestimating them, is I do want us to not just go 2 goals up and then try to just cruise from there, because they are a team that at any given moment have the individual qualities to hurt you and make a game out of it, out of nothing. So I would like to see us, start strong, because we haven't seen it as much in the last few games in terms of starting out with high energy, high pressing. And then if we can get a couple of goals, ideally leading into a half time, for example, I want us to go for 3s and 4s rather than, Arteta's alluded to it in quite a few conferences, but just that ruthlessness that is lacking in the team is something that I look at a game like this with their injuries and not having their starting centre-backs. And I say this is the game where even without Aubameyang, we have to really punish them, basically.
Yeah.
Zed, do you have any info on what's going on with Oba? Because I know Charles Watts reported that he wasn't going to be. He thinks he's not playing because he wasn't in training today.
Well, no, I don't.
I think he suggested that he's. The signs look like he was unwell, so he missed training today.
Okay, so he was just ill.
Yeah,
yeah.
It's funny that you mentioned Aubameyang, because I was going to ask you, like, isn't it strange that it's always around this time of the year where he just manages to just disappear, when it's the time of crisis. I don't know. I don't want to point out and say Aubameyang's this or Aubameyang's that. But it just feels like it's happened way too often for
bro,
club captain.
Zed, look, let me tell you something about Oba. I've always liked him as a player, just as a player. I know what his limits are as a striker. Again, I think we're asking him to do things in a game which he's never been asked to do before, and that he's incapable of doing. So he doesn't fit our system. I get that. It doesn't mean that he's not a quality player. He might be, off form, or he might be aged, catching up with him. It's very difficult to read all that into what's going on there because we don't know, right? And I guess as time goes on a little bit more, some of those questions get answered. But he is a poor leader, without a doubt in my mind, right?
He should have never been made captain, 100%.
Yeah, and we've got a problem. We've got a problem as a club. We've done it several times. We've made our best player captain when in reality they never had the minerals to be a captain, right?
Definitely, yeah.
And I think going forward, we've got to stop doing that. We've actually got to pick players who actually lead by example, and not because they're the best player in the team, right? And I think that requires a bit of bravery from the management. And to be frank, that shouldn't even be a decision made by the management, like the manager. It should be a decision made by, and this is going to sound outrageous, a sporting director. There should be like a philosophy on how a captain is selected and a criteria set. Does that make sense? Right? It shouldn't be a bargaining chip to bloody renew a contract for a player who's coming to the end of the contract, even if he's one of your better players. Right? That's not how you work out who's going to be your next captain. So the reason why I'm frustrated with that is the reason. Let me tell you why I'm frustrated.
Okay, go on.
The reason why I'm frustrated is because when these moments of crisis happen, he doesn't show, right? He doesn't front up, and he's not there. And I feel like the young players have to take that on their shoulders, and that can't be right. Right? So that comment that Arteta made a while back about experienced players have to lead and young players have to follow. That was said. We know exactly who he was saying that to, because there's not many of them there in the squad, right? That was
There's
being,
literally
in
only
my
two.
opinion, aimed at Thomas Partey and Oba, right?
Yeah.
So that's my problem with him. Not as a player, not as a goal scorer. He's always, no one's going to take that away from him. No one could take that away from him because of what he's done in his career, right? But as a leader, I don't want him to be the fucking coolest captain. I want him to be the most effective captain, a guy that shows up when the chips are down, right? Who gives a shit about having a captain who's the coolest, right? What's cool got to do with anything when you're, you're 1-0 down or you're 2-1 down and you need to rescue the game? Do you understand where I'm coming from? So I've got a lot of criticism for him personally, and it's not about that he's missing chances. It's about what he's doing when the chips are down, because I don't see enough visibly for me. Maybe he's doing it in the training ground. I don't know, but I don't see it visibly for me.
Yeah,
in the game.
Just to add on quickly, I completely agree. I've never seen him as a captain, and for me, last season, despite what he went through, there were too many times when he did play, the chips were down, results didn't go our way, and we're wheeling out Saka for post-match interview. Certain things like that just never really sat right with me in terms of, as you mentioned, the pressure that we put on the young players to lead and how much he has been absolved of responsibility despite being a captain. He's basically been carried too many times by our younger players, and that just doesn't sit right with me. And then obviously there's the Instagram post that happened after the United game that for me was unacceptable. Not to rehash things that have happened and already been discussed, but yeah, that's the only thing I wanted to say really regarding Oba.
Samuel, I didn't want to pile in. Sorry, I just want to just quickly just say something on that Insta post. I heard about that. I went and saw it. I didn't want to pile in. I didn't want to add it to a list of like things that annoyed me about Oba, but it did annoy me. Oba's a dad, for God's sake. He's got young kids, right? So when you're a father, usually you tend to be responsible. You tend to understand that your actions have consequences. How you lead your children, sort of, pick up those kind of things. How can a grown man who's meant to be the captain of our club feel that it's right for him to go and do stupid things like that? Right?
Yeah, he's never struck me as the type of guy who he has that kind of childish streak in him, basically, which is even worse as a captain. There's one thing if maybe you don't want to put yourself out there in terms of being completely responsible, but then there's other things where you invite a negative sort of perception onto you, and for me, that Instagram post is part of that, along with other things he's done. And yeah, for me, the thing I just thought about was, like fans come, like if you're on the way home from Old Trafford and you've just paid money, stood in the cold, tried to sing for your team, and then you see that after, it makes you feel like, why did you even bother? That's the feeling I would have if I was a fan who went up to Manchester, traveled 8 hours there and back, just to see your captain do that. It would make it feel, to me anyway, like he's never really in it to begin with. So what was the point? But yeah, sorry, Nom.
No, bro. I mean, look, I'm just saying this Oba thing before it blows up, or gets prolonged. And look, strikers go off form. But if he did it quietly or he fronted up and he was the first one to say, "Listen, I'm in a bad state of form. I need to go out onto the training pitch. I need to work harder. I need to keep just putting in a performance for the team." If he fronted up, that would be great. You know that? Because I think he would have a lot of sympathy and a lot of backing from the fans to think, the guy's going through a bad patch. He's fronting up. He's coming in. Like those 2 misses that he did at Old Trafford, and then that last minute miss, he should have been the first person at the cameras to take the shit from the media. Do you understand what I'm saying to you?
Yeah.
Right? You let your team down.
He's happy to do interviews after good results. That's the thing as well.
Bro, anyone could do, but you know what? That's the wrong time for a captain, in my personal opinion.
Yeah, definitely.
Right? So look, that's where I've lost patience with him. It's his behaviour as a captain, not necessarily what's happening to him as a striker, because I get it. Any striker could have missed chances, etc. But he's got an added bonus of like being the captain of this club. So now he has to live up to those expectations. And I can't imagine Mikel isn't talking to him about that. Because I remember from whatever you think of Mikel as a manager, what I do know is when he was a captain of the club, he took his responsibilities as captain very, very seriously. Right? So I can't imagine a lot of this sits well with him. But as I said, I personally think this is the last year we see of Oba. I think if we can get our number one target for summer, that is it for him.
I feel like the system is already moving away from a player like Aubameyang, and like even the fact that he was on the bench against Everton probably said a lot, because you would want your best striker at the club to start against, start in an away game, especially against Everton at Goodison Park. But we saw was it Lacazette, Martinelli, and then even after that we saw Nketiah come on, and I think that probably said a lot to not only Aubameyang but just to everybody else. It's putting out a statement where the manager is trying to say, look, Aubameyang, you're no longer the most important player at the club.
And I mean, I'm going to go one step further. I think Arteta's biggest mistake was to bring Oba off the bench on that game. I think he should just get. Look, and I'm saying this on hindsight. I put my hand up on hindsight, because at the time we needed a goal. So you think, right, okay, experienced captain, meant to be your best striker, we've got to bring him on, right? But the truth is, if that chance fell to anybody else, I reckon it would have been the back of the goal, right? We bring him on, and Eddie, was it Eddie? I think it was Eddie, wasn't it? Who dummied the ball going to
Gabriel done the dummy.
Was it Gabriel? Sorry, bro, I couldn't figure out who it was now at the time. Now,
yeah, because it doesn't look like any of our strikers.
But this is what I'm trying to say to you. Like, if Oba wasn't there, would the player dummied it, or they would take responsibility with that ball? Do you know what I'm saying to you? So for me, I don't know, man. I feel like he doesn't do enough to prove that he is doing more than just running around and pressing for us in the pitch. I feel like he thinks that, is sufficient to show that he's captaincy material, and that the fact that he jokes around and laughs with the players in the changing room. When in reality, we need more in this team, right? And we can see it. It's clear to us, isn't it? Like, Partey isn't a leader. We were discussing that earlier on. Oba isn't a leader. And they're your two most senior players on the pitch, right? And then you're asking the younger players who don't have the experience to start doing things, and they don't really know how to go about and influence their... This is it. Even if you
all of a sudden, Xhaka, who wanted to leave and was talking about going to Rome, is your most important player in terms of leadership on the pitch when everyone's fit. Yeah, basically.
And the other thing is, Samuel, that those players will become leaders, because believe it or not, all of these experience that they're having is building their character as professionals as they get older. They will be exposed to things that other young players will not be exposed to in any other club. Where is there another club where you've got such young players being put under such pressure to make the difference week in, week out?
Yeah, but in the short term, we're kind of screwed in the leadership department.
100%. But I think in the long run, I think we've got lots of players. Like, I was impressed with what Odegaard said, because that shows a level of intelligence for me, that he understands it's a mental thing.
Yeah, he doesn't know the answer. I think all of our signings this past summer will turn out to be good leaders. I don't see any of them not being good leaders. Maybe Ben White the least, and even him, he still shows you a bit more character than someone like Oba. So yeah, I have no doubt with our long-term leadership.
You know what I think with Ben? Ben's brave, but I think he still doesn't know when to be brave. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So he does, like, a couple of times he's gone on a run when I don't think it's the right time to go for that run. Do you know what I'm saying to you? And a couple of times he has done it, and it was the right time, and it's made a difference. So yeah.
I think it's still technically only his second season. Yeah, it's only his second season technically in the Prem. So there will be growing pains, and I've always said that, even from sort of when I discussed the whole transfer window months ago on here, Like, I understand that people. I think what's really messed up the fan base and what you saw after the Everton game in terms of the toxicity that we described was everyone's talking about top four and season opportunity because of Man United slipping up of late. And so they've underestimated the growing pains of having an under 23 transfer window and what that strategy actually entails. So for me personally, I was always expecting there to be games like an Everton away where certain intangibles are lacking, certain experiences lacking, and then that can happen. But now it's like, oh, because top four is such a thing, people have disregarded, I feel like personally, some of that aspect of the players we actually have. And as a result, you get the kind of backlash you would expect of, people who are maybe more seasoned veteran players who there should be no growing pains and such performances are inexcusable, which I do understand to some extent as well, because obviously we're talking about Arsenal. There is a certain standard to be met, but at the same time, I feel like people are having a hard time dealing with the growing pains of a really young squad, especially with that top four in mind. But that's just me personally.
Before we move on to the lineups, I know Mush was trying to say something about Aubameyang. Do you wanna
Oh yeah, no,
tell
I was
us?
just saying, the whole captain incident of him being captain, that all started from Emery. Like I remember when Koscielny left, because Koscielny was our captain, obviously. Emery didn't take control of that situation properly. Instead, he just said, "Oh, I've got five captains." Like, and since then, I think the five captains were Oba, Xhaka, Bellerin. I can't remember who the others were, but Lacazette maybe. And it's just gotten to a point where it's like, if I think Xhaka was the main one, and he got stripped of captaincy because of the incident against Palace at home. And obviously, since then, it was just like, oh, who else do I give it to? You might as well give it to Oba. And it's put Arteta in a predicament because he's come to the club now, and I'm assuming, I think everyone knows this, he doesn't want Aubameyang as his captain. But it's like you can't just strip him off the captaincy because that's just horrible man management there. Um, but I think if we had to choose a captain, I think it would either be Tierney or Ramsdale even, or even Gabriel. But I think if we had to choose one now, it had to be Tierney. But I think once Oba leaves, we'll see who Arteta really sees as the real captain. So you can't just give him stick for that. If we were giving him stick for that, we just got to give him the benefit of the doubt and understand that you can't really strip off someone of captaincy like that.
Okay. So let's talk about the lineups against Southampton. Ideally, for me personally, I wouldn't want to see the same starting 11 that we saw against Everton, purely based on the fact that I want to see someone like Thomas Partey being dropped. I feel like despite him, not having the best of performances and all of that stuff, he could obviously come out and play and try and make up for his bad performances. But I feel like he needs away from this team for now. He can come on after the 60th minute, and I'd rather have probably Sambi and Xhaka play together, whilst Tierney as well. I would like to see Tierney get a lot more minutes. We need him to start building, fitness before the big game against West Ham as well. So it's really important. Another player who's injured is it's not injured. So another player
Smith
who
Rowe.
should. No, Smith Rowe is back actually. I thought Martinelli might miss the game, but apparently he's fit.
Yeah.
And it'll be interesting to see whether Balogun's in the squad tomorrow, because obviously Aubameyang is out, and Nketiah might start as well, so Balogun might take his place on the bench. So it'll
For
be
me,
interesting. Mm.
how I'd agree with you. Like in terms of the back five, we keep it the same. Tierney starting, but obviously sub him off when the game's done, just to control him, control his minutes, and make sure he's fully ready for West Ham. I do the same with Xhaka, and with the pivot, it'd be Xhaka and Lokonga, which basically is going to be our pivot for when Partey goes off for AFCON. So we should give it a try tomorrow and see how it is. And give Partey a rest because clearly he hasn't been playing well. And in terms of the front four, I've seen people on Twitter say they want Nketiah up front, which I can understand because from his cameo at Goodison Park, he was very direct. Like he was like, I mean, I said as a joke when he was coming on, when um he was coming on for, I can't remember who he came on for. I think it was Saka. I said as a joke, Arteta's trying to use Nketiah as his Gabriel Jesus just so Nicolas Pepe doesn't play. But when Nketiah did play, it was kind of like watching Gabriel Jesus at City. So he was good, but I think in terms of the front four, I'd go with Odegaard in the 10. I don't know if Smith Rowe's fit. Um, but I'd go with Smith Rowe on the left, Saka on the right, and Martinelli up front, sorry. And if Smith Rowe wasn't fit, then I'd play Nketiah on the left and Martinelli up front. I think people might see it differently with Martinelli on the left and Nketiah up front, but that's how I would go.
None.
You know what? It's interesting because I was actually really surprised about Eddie's performance when he came on. See, I'd be tempted to play him, but I don't know if it'd be difficult to change things around and bring momentum on if he doesn't start off well. Like I think sometimes someone like Eddie, he's going to make more of an impact when he comes off as a sub as opposed to when he plays the full 90 minutes. Does that sort of make sense? Because then it's almost like Everton's defence didn't know what to expect of him, and they were kind of taken aback by the fact that he was willing to take them on. I think Coleman was getting roasted, wasn't he? I think down there. So I think I'd still keep Eddie on the bench, although I'd definitely bring him on during the game.
But even if he was to start, for me, I'd start him left wing instead of up front. If you see what I'm saying, because he did play left wing a lot pre-season, and he did have that good game at.
That's what I'm saying. I'd bring him on not as a striker, but as playing off that left. Because
100%.
But I thought Laka had a bad game against Everton, but for me, Saka will play. I don't know if he's going to risk Smith Rowe though. I don't know if he's worried with the number of games coming up. I think the problem we had with Emil Smith Rowe was that he looked fatigued before he got picked up the injury. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And we've seen this before, haven't we, with him? So we've got to be really careful because if we rush him back, we could be in trouble. So I think what we need to do is the way this game will be set up, we want to exploit Southampton on transitions by doing a counter press on them. So having quick players who can get in behind their back line is important. So Saka, Martinelli. See, this is where I remember Laka having not a bad game actually against them. I'm pretty sure Laka played. Do you remember the time when was it at the Dell where we beat them? Not the Dell, you know what I mean? St. Mary's, sorry. Dell, bloody hell, first name my age.
Yeah, Laka played well last year away against them. I think
so
back as well.
So I think, like, for me, it's difficult because I think Odegaard, you can see that he's slowly building up his form. I think he'll play. And then I think I agree with you. Keep the back five as it is that starts against Everton. I think Z's right about dropping Thomas Partey. I think he needs to be dropped because I think his confidence shot to pieces, to be frank. Seriously, and we have to do what we've done with Kieran and Martin earlier on this season. Do you remember earlier on the season when they went off form?
Yeah.
We allowed them to try to see if we could play through the bad form, and then they couldn't. And so we had to allow the other players. And that's the whole point of having a competitive squad and having a squad whereby you give everyone a fair chance. So I think it's time to sort of take Thomas out the firing line and allow us, like Xhaka's back. I was surprised. I'm not sure if the plan was to keep Xhaka on the pitch as long as we did though. Right, against Everton, I think we kept him on way long, and that was risky.
Yeah, he looked gassed out after the 60th minute.
And exactly. Yeah, so I think if anything, maybe get to the 60th or 70th minute, sorry, and then take Xhaka off because even playing him, from Monday to Saturday is a bit of a risk considering how long he's been out for, right? So I think that's how I would do it. I mean, it's difficult because I think up front, I think. Depends on what he wants. I would want a high energy, clever sort of forward movement in my front line to be able to try to, because even though the players will know, the back line will know the system, they haven't played probably together, some of those defenders, in a game situation in the Prem yet. So I think that's where we can exploit them. Do you know what I'm saying to you? But we have to win the ball back when they're trying to sort of build and hit them, right? Especially if they hold a back line. Hassan Hothel, from what I can tell, very rarely compromises his philosophy with his selection. So I think we will set up a forward line, hopefully, to be able to exploit that, right? And I can see multiple players.
No, I'll let you finish. Go on.
No. That's what I say. I'll finish there. So you know,
the problem with having high energy is obviously we've got to consider we're playing West Ham, and that's why with my team selection, I've got Partey out. Like, you know, you got Partey and Smith Rowe out, and even in the game, I take off Xhaka and Tierney like in the 60th to 70th minute. Like, you got to pick the team tomorrow with consideration that we've got West Ham coming up. So the game management tomorrow has to be on point as well. Like, I understand what you're trying to say with we've got to play with energy, but don't you think if we play with energy or too much energy, it's just going to put us at a disadvantage against West Ham?
I don't. I'll tell you why. Because if we don't try to correct some of the things that we said has been a problem for, right? It doesn't matter. Look, we play once a week, for God's sake, right? And we're saying that we're worried about our players gassing out. I mean, how is this squad going to cope if we get into Europe next year? Do you know what I'm saying to you? So somewhere along the line, we have to push out this idea that we've got to be careful. You know, we don't want to fatigue our players. I look at teams like Southampton. They can go in like when they're not in, you know, at the moment they go through an injury crisis, but when they're not going through an injury crisis, and I reckon when they hit their best form, I've been watching them for the last couple of seasons. They could go on 6-7 games with the same team, and we see it with Liverpool as well, where they go and play high intensity games, and they just push through it, because you know what it is, when you're winning and you're playing with confidence, you don't feel fatigue. Do you understand where I'm coming from? Right?
Yeah.
I guess it's a little bit more. I guess it's a little bit more acute sometimes with young players, but even young players can literally play with adrenaline from one week to the next week if your performance is the first thing that's in the forefront of your mind. Do you understand what I'm saying? To a positive performance, right? You know, you get that sniff for you know, that you're on top form and you can have the other team when they come across. You know, that you feel like you're going to step on the pitch and you're going to beat the other team because as a collective you're on form. We've got to be able to discover that to kickstart our season. Do you know what I'm saying to you? In a much more convincing way than we have done in previous performances. And it's got to start somewhere. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So why not against Southampton? Right?
Yeah, so we've spoken about the lineouts, we've spoken about the way Southampton play. Do you guys have any other overall thoughts on the game? Is there anything different that you want to see? Any tactical tweaks that you want to see different compared to how we've played in the last few games?
I just want to see us control the game better and try to control the game for majority of the game, and rather not just, you know, go up 1-0 or, you know, go up 1-0 and then just sit back and see what they can do. I just want to see us like be very dominant. Like, it's a Southampton side. Like, I'm not even trying to take the piss out of them. They're going to be shit tomorrow because they've they haven't got their starting centre backs. They're starting a 40-year-old keeper. They haven't got their CDM. They haven't got their two strikers. We should be absolutely destroying them. Not scoreline wise. I mean, like on the ball. That's all I want to see.
Full-time result 1-0 Southampton.
Yeah.
As well.
Yeah, Mush has just managed to give them the team talk. Mush, look, what I'm trying to say to you is, look, forget about, for us to be able to, you know, we've got to start performing to our potential, right? Forget about the fact that the team's coming is depleted. We've got to get our game going, regardless of whoever we're playing. Do you know what I'm saying to you? If you want to bring this young team into becoming an elite team, they've got to start learning that regardless of who's put in front of them, they are going to go out there, play, and want to dominate the game. And in order to do that, I need the players to run for each other a lot more than they're doing, especially when we have the ball. Do you know what I'm saying to you? I don't see enough runs, right? And I get it. It's positional play. Part of position play that you have to be in certain spaces. But when you get into the final third, I don't see enough movement, right? I don't see enough movement. I don't see enough sacrificial movement from players. They're all too static, wanting to get the ball played back to them, to their feet, so they can then play it back. And then they need a lot more movement and a lot more options. I think sometimes the passes that we are playing to other players are too obvious. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So we need to bring a little bit of unpredictability. We need to be a little bit more braver on the ball in the final third, right? And we need to believe in like our ability. I think when we get those opportunities where we isolate Southampton on the flanks, or we have the chance to get into the box, our decision making has to be perfect. Even if we miss the chance, the delivery of that ball at the right time has to be perfect. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Too many times we get into good positions and then we don't execute that final pass. So for me, that's what I'll be looking for tomorrow. Right? It's, can we do all the little things better than what we're doing before? Right? Are we able to push up?
If Odegaard does play, though, if Odegaard does play, I would like him to run, like do a lot more overlapping. Because one thing that his biggest criticism is he doesn't engage with the team a lot. So I feel like he's a lot more passive in the way he plays, and even though he's coming into form, and personally I feel like his movement is great. But for example, when it's Tomiyasu to Saka, I feel like Saka's isolated on the touchline the entire time. And even if Odegaard, makes a little movement, through the half spaces, what happens is Saka can actually gain some advantage. And even and the fact of the matter is, someone like Tomiyasu is an inverted fullback, so he doesn't even overlap as well. So we need someone like Odegaard to make the overlap and run, and it's going to be important because I think, like, obviously against Everton, that's probably where it was one of our biggest weaknesses. We weren't penetrating enough down that right hand side. So it's something that I'm hoping Arteta instructs Odegaard to do. And specifically against this, I don't know, I feel like it's going to be some inexperienced and over-experienced Southampton team. So it'll be interesting to see, how the team plays overall. But yes,
I want to see.
Go ahead.
I want to see Odegaard take more risks. Like,
Yes,
there's too many times, especially in build-up, he'll receive the ball and just turn around and pass it back when there were opportunities where he could just, play Saka in or something. Like, I just want to see him take more risks and just be more expressive. Like, cool, he's been a goal threat, but in terms of creating chances, he hasn't really created a clear-cut chance for me where I've gone, okay, wow, we found a real AM. But he's just been on the end of things and scoring goals. I just really want to see him be more expressive and be more positive and just show everyone what you can do.
Mush, I don't think he's going to do that by himself if there aren't other players running for him. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? So the problem is our runs off the ball are too predictable in the final third. Do you know what I'm saying to you? Like, when Martinelli made that run and Tomiyasu played that ball in and he scored against Newcastle, neither fullback expected him to make that run or the centre back. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Right,
but
and get the ball.
Tomorrow we're most likely going to have Martinelli or Nketiah up front. So with having a
we're definitely going to see more movement. Front three. Those boys will definitely be making runs.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
Those
I
boys
want to see a front three of Martinelli, Saka, and Nketiah. So with them three as the front three, I think we'll see. I hope it gives Odegaard a chance to really, play in those.
I agree with you. That would be the brave choice, in my opinion. Like, when I was saying to you, high energy football, if those three will bring high energy at the front, right, then it's up to our midfielders to find them in their runs. And sometimes, when those players make their runs, they will just literally drag players away and create space for the midfielders. Do you know what I'm saying to you? So running off the ball has to be a lot more consistent, and it has to be done knowing that sometimes you're not going to get the ball and you're trying to create space for your midfielders, right? For them to be able to then exploit that space. So, if Mikel plays that front three, I'd be happy because I then get what he's trying to do. He's trying to bring high energy in that game. He's trying to give his midfielders options for them to hit the midfielders. But then we can't in midfield play sideways passes. We have to then go for it. Then you can say to Odegaard and to Xhaka and to Lokonga, right, we need you to play, we need you to keep playing them in. Do you know what I'm saying to you? Because you've got willing runners there.
Also, I want to address the comment that said Odegaard is not suited to the Prem. if that was the case, then we wouldn't have seen the best of Özil. We wouldn't have seen the best of Silva. They're all the same type of players. So it's just people are being too impatient with Ødegaard. Just give him time, and hopefully we'll see the best of him. Obviously, right now it's not convincing, but yeah, I disagree with that.
All right, guys, I think it's time to wrap up. But before I wrap up, obviously, if you guys weren't here, I would have asked CK, George, and Curran for their predictions, but you guys will have to do for today. So, Mush, what's your prediction for the game?
I don't know. Can I have two predictions? Can you come back to me at the end?
Well, I'm
Well,
sure. I'm sure.
See,
Nom
you might as well
doesn't-
get me out of the way because you know I'm not
Yeah,
going
yeah.
to make a prediction.
Yeah, exactly.
Look,
I'm sure
I'll
you
predict
don't
one
do
thing. I'll make a prediction on how I think we'll play. I think there'll be times tomorrow where we will play some really good stuff, but there'll be times there where we get nervous and we're going to fall back into bad characteristics, and then that's what I'm going to be interested in, how we deal with that. On paper, I think I can talk about a positive result, but me making a score prediction is going to be neither here nor there. For me, really, honestly, I'm looking for the performance. I'm looking at what we do when we, take a lead, for example. If we take a lead and how we then perform from that point on. Have we changed any fundamentals?
I wanna
Samuel?
agree with Willow. I want to agree with Willow and say 3-1. That's what I want to see. But what
Okay.
realistically is going to happen is what Zed said, and that's 1-0. That's what's going to happen.
I think that prediction.
I'm gonna blame you for getting so like slating their team. Saying,
No, I'm not even positive about it. I'm just trying to be realistic. Like I'm not even realistic. Just trying to say what everyone's thinking is it's a shit Southampton side. I'm just the one that said it. You guys just don't want to say it because it's Arsenal.
Bruv, we just want to jinx ourselves. That's what I'm saying. All right.
Yeah,
To be honest, I
at
don't
full
really,
time. It's going to be at full time tomorrow. We're going to see a Walcott hat trick.
What? He's going to be happy then, yes, because his favorite player's got a hat trick.
Win-win. All right, and Samuel.
Yeah, I think it's going to be one of those games where, to be honest, I wouldn't be surprised if we go into halftime 0-0. And it's a bit cagey. Maybe something similar to like the Newcastle game. We're still quite dominant, but with the attackers we have, I don't think any of them are bang in form like that for me to actually be confident. But however, in terms of scoreline, I am actually going to go for 4-0. Not because I think that's what's going to happen, but because
Samuel, that was the biggest turnaround in like first half starts off really negative.
Wait, are you
No,
saying
I
4-0
wanna
Arsenal or
end-
4-0 Southampton?
Hey,
Samuel, I
either
wonder
way,
what
man.
you're going to
Either
predict,
way.
bruv, if you were really positive about this. You know that?
No, I'm saying like that's basically my positive prediction, only because that's what I want to see. I want to see our first real, like start to finish, convincing, like performance. I want us to have a game where we are ruthless, as I mentioned earlier, in terms of going 2 goals up and not sitting back and not looking for 3s and 4s. I want this game to be the game where it's not just a bounce back, but we're trying to make a statement as well. So
I get what Samuel's saying. You're saying like you want this game for it to be the one where we click and we suddenly a bit like
definitely.
it's not going to be the equivalent of, because I think when we played Chelsea last year, that was a do or die kind of game. Do you know what I'm saying to you? And those players went in and put in a real performance. But that kind of turnaround game, you're saying, so that we go in and
basically this should be the game where we basically start another run of form, where we go like 10 games. Hopefully, most of them we win. Ideally, go unbeaten or whatever the case is. Well, actually, I just remembered we play Man City beginning of January, so maybe not 10 games, but you know what I mean. So for me, yeah, in terms of the performance, like we all know it's Arsenal, anything can happen. And like I said, certain things won't surprise me if they do happen. But from a positive perspective, what I would like to see is definitely a statement game where we don't just win by a goal or two, but we're thoroughly convincing and we don't really give them a sniff. Yeah, so I'm going to go with 4-0 as my prediction.
Yeah, and me, like, obviously 1-0, and it's not because I'm negative. I don't want to be negative. It's just the fact that every time I've gone to the Emirates and I've actually predicted a high-scoring game, we've gone and scored just a single goal. So
So you're doing the
so,
opposite. I like that.
yeah.
I like that. Reverse psychology on yourself.
Exactly. So I'm setting some expectations. Unfortunately, I can't go to the Emirates tomorrow because I've got COVID. So I'm gonna have to be cheering the team from just from watching them on TV. But yeah, I'm hoping to see a good performance. Honestly, it's been a while since we've seen a good performance. I feel like the last one was probably Villa. But yeah. Anyways, I wanted to talk about the other predictions as well. Obviously, CK's predicted 2-0, George 2-0. They usually just copy each other all the time. I don't know what it is. Curran, and I'm joking. I feel like they're on like some different competition where they, that they want to win this whole prediction league thing that's going on.
Who's winning at the moment? Who's winning on that prediction league at the moment?
I think it's George, and then it's CK joint second or something.
Okay.
And yeah, Curran 1-0. I feel like he's probably used my analogy as well. Like, we don't score goals at home, and Willow, surprisingly, very positive, 3-1. So yeah, I mean, I hope we win. That's the main thing, and I hope we see a good performance. And at the end of the day, I hope we see more than 4 goals, because Samuel, if that happens, man, I'll be a happy man. I'll be a very, very happy man.
Samuel, we'll be coming for lottery numbers, bro, if it's 4-0. Do you understand?
Look, man, honestly, like, I just want one game where we have like that typical, like Arsenal home performance that we were usually used to. Because like we said, like the Everton game was a kind of typical Arsenal performance in terms of soft underbelly. So I want a thrashing at home, man. It just feels like it's been too long. So yeah, if it does, then
what you want, Samuel?
You guys have got me for drinks.
Yeah. We want
Drinks
momentum, though, don't we? Drinks on us, guys.
Definitely.
Hold on, no, bro. If you get the prediction right, drinks on you, bro.
Astaghfirullah.
Nah,
mine's a lemonade. Zed, I don't know why you're saying astaghfirullah, bro.
Yeah, I don't know why you're saying astaghfirullah, bro.
Mine's a Red Bull. There's
a lot of different drinks. I'll accept sparkling water. I'm just saying, I need something in return. But but yeah, in terms of a statement performance, in terms of confidence, in terms of for the fans as well. Who
I don't know that one.
Oh, sorry. That was my Alexa. Sorry. In terms of like overall performance.
Hold on, what did you just say before Alexa got confused, bro? Because I think she's trying to tell you something.
I found on the web. According to
sorry. And I think the fans deserve, more importantly, like a big performance and a big result scoreline wise. So yeah, that's everything.
I'm sorry to break it to you, but 4-0 isn't happening. Like, it's not happening. There's more chance of Southampton winning 4-0
to be fair, Aubameyang isn't playing. Just think about it.
I'm thinking about it, and I still don't see 4-0.
The Newcastle game, or when even against Watford, when he miscontrolled that pass for the disallowed Saka goal, those games we go in at half time 1 or 2 goals up. So I'm hoping Aubameyang actually has a positive effect.
We'll see, bro.
I really doubt it.
Mush, I can't believe. Listen, bro. Hold on. I swear you were doing all like negative, and then someone. What were you saying, Mush? What was the score? What did you predict?
I predicted 1-0. I wasn't being positive. I was just saying what's on everyone's mind. That Southampton team tomorrow is going to be shit.
Okay. Right.
The 40-year-old. Their goalkeeper is older than Arteta. I just want to put that out there. Their goalkeeper is older than Arteta. So
hey, look, man, respect Willie, man.
It's not going to happen.
Respect Willie.
Yeah,
he's shit.
Mush, listen, Mush, bro. Why are you having slating Samuel here, and now he's like slating Kappa? He's going to put on a once-in-a-lifetime performance just against us. Listen, just before we finish, I bet you Everton lose their game, whoever they're playing next. Do you know what I'm saying to you? And they go back to that stupid run of theirs.
That always happens, man.
So,
yeah,
Mush, as far as you're concerned, pay your respect to Willie Caballero, bro. All right.
All right.
Because
he's shit. But anyways, let's go.
I feel like we've been waffling on for way too long.
Yeah,
Just purely because we're all desperate for a win, man. Honestly, I hope we win. But yeah, thank you guys for joining. Mush, thank you for filling in. Thanks for being a substitute. Samuel, thank you for joining. Nom, you know, it's always a credit to having you on the pod. And
sorry,
yeah,
man.
like honestly, just genuinely appreciate it. But yeah, it's a wrap for me. And do you guys want to
Peace and
shout
love,
your
everyone.
do you guys want to shout your socials
Nah,
before
bro,
we
I'm
leave?
tall for that. All right, you let the youngsters do that.
Yeah, go on.
Like I said in the beginning, if you can't read, it's AFC Mush. So yeah.
You know what, bro? Not only is he like winding up Willie Caballero, he's doing the whole like listeners as well.
Samuel?
Nah, I don't want to shout out anything. Just yeah, my @ is there if anyone wants to follow. I'm the Divock
Right.
Origi, as I said, of Ball Over Passion. So yeah, that's about it, really.
All right, guys, it's time to head out. So, yeah, see you after the game.
4-0 Arsenal. Cheers.